the signal. A faint, trembling whisper caught between static and silence, echoing through the mountains every night at exactly 2:13 a.m. No one knew where it came from. The coordinates always traced back to the same spot deep in Blackwood Forest, a hunting cabin abandoned for over 30 years. Ethan Cole was the man sent to investigate. He was a field radio technician, logical, calm, and definitely not one for ghost stories. But as he drove into the forest, something felt wrong. The drive seemed endless. His GPS kept looping him back to the same stretch of road as if the woods themselves refused to let him in, or maybe refused to let him out. The fog grew thicker, pressing against the windshield like a cold, wet breath. At every turn of his radio dial, the mysterious signal grew stronger, and through the crackling static, it began to whisper his name. When he finally reached a clearing, the cabin was waiting. Its roof had collapsed in one corner, the windows were boarded up, but a faint lantern glow pulsed from within, even though there was no electricity for miles around. The air was still and heavy, thick with the scent of moss and rust. Ethan pushed the door open, and it groaned like a living thing in pain. Inside, a dusty transmitter sat on a table, its wires tangled around it like dark veins. As he stepped closer, the static resolved into clear words. "Help me." The whisper was soft, desperate, a woman's voice caught somewhere between a plea and a distant memory. Ethan froze. The microphone wasn't even connected. He cautiously took out his own recorder, speaking into it, asking for identification. The reply didn't come in a voice. It came as a series of dots and dashes, Morse code beeping through the transmitter. Acting on pure instinct, he decoded it. The message was simple: stay. And with that, the radio died with a faint, final sigh. Hours seemed to fold into one another. His phone had no signal, and the needle on his compass just spun in slow, useless circles. He was trapped. Then he heard it, a dull creak from the floor above. Slow, heavy footsteps, as if the house itself was remembering how to move. He called out, "Is anyone up there?" Only a shower of dust falling from the ceiling answered him. Suddenly, a door above him clicked open, and a pale blue light spilled through the cracks in the floorboards. Heart pounding, he climbed the stairs. At the top stood a tall, cracked mirror, but it wasn't reflecting the decaying room he was in. It reflected a room that no longer existed: clean walls, lit lamps, and a woman sitting by a desk, tapping messages into a transmitter identical to the one downstairs. Her face was calm, her expression serene until she turned and looked directly at him. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. He read her silent words. "Why did you come back?" In an instant, the mirror shattered outward, spraying the room with glass as a gust of freezing air blasted through. Ethan stumbled back, his heart hammering in his chest. Shards of glass glinted on the floor like 100 tiny mirrors, each one reflecting a fragment of his own terrified face. He scrambled back downstairs and frantically replayed his radio log. The signal whispered again, but this time it was his own voice. "Help me, please, I can't leave." He hadn't recorded that. The sound stretched, distorted, and finally screamed into a wall of static before cutting off completely. A horrifying realization crawled up his spine. The cabin wasn't broadcasting a signal, it was recording one, and it had just captured him. His eyes darted around the room, landing on a dusty photograph hanging on the wall. It showed a team of technicians standing proudly in front of this very cabin, Cabin 13, and one of them looked exactly like him. The picture was dated 1983. He couldn't breathe. He had to get out. He burst through the door and ran outside, but the forest had changed. The trees had drawn closer, their massive trunks forming a tight, impenetrable ring around the clearing. Path he'd driven in on was gone. Through the dense fog, faint lanterns appeared, dozens of them bobbing gently in the air. Shadowy shapes held them, the vague outlines of people from different decades, their faces lost in a blur. A chorus of whispers rose around him, all speaking at once. "Stay, help us, finish the signal." Ethan backed away, tripping over a root as his flashlight flickered and died. When the beam sputtered back to life a second later, all the figures were gone. But something else was there. The transmitter from the cabin now sat directly in front of him, its wires pulsing with a faint red light. It wasn't plugged into anything. Then a soft mechanical ticking began. The countdown. 60, 59, 58. He shouted into the darkness, demanding to know what they wanted. In response, the cabin door creaked open on its own. The radio inside crackled back to life. "Join the frequency, complete the transmission." It was his own voice again, but warped, layered with another tone beneath it, something older, something not quite human. As the countdown reached 0, the night exploded in a blinding pulse of sound and light. For a single terrifying moment, he saw everything. People from different eras frozen mid-broadcast, their faces stretched in silent screams. All of them tethered together by invisible waves of static. Then just as quickly, they were gone, burned into the fog like after images. Ethan stared into the dark glass of the transmitter and saw his reflection. It was smiling back at him even though his own mouth wasn't moving. The hum rose higher, a single piercing note that filled the air until the entire world went white. Morning came quietly. A pair of rangers arrived, following up on a report of strange lights in the area. They found the cabin door wide open, the transmitter humming softly on the table. One ranger tapped it curiously. "Looks like someone was here last night." The other pointed to a blinking red light. A new message was playing. "This is Technician Ethan Cole. Signal received. Mission complete." The rangers exchanged puzzled looks. "Who's Ethan Cole?" Only static answered. One of them shrugged and turned the radio off. As they walked away, the device powered back on by itself, and the whisper returned, faint but clear, carried on the wind. "Help me, please. I can't leave." The forest listened, carrying the signal further into the night, waiting for the next voice to answer its call. Because once you hear the call from Cabin 13, you never stop transmitting. Thank you so much for joining me on this chilling journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there and see you next time.